And you've just heard Her Art by Louise McCorkindale from the EP of the same name. I'm delighted to be joined by Louise now. Hello, Louise.
Hi, Ali.
So first of all, what can you tell us about Her Art and the songs on it? Let's take the songs individually, starting with Her Art, because we've just heard it.
Okay, Her Art. Well, this song has quite a story, quite a history. At work, I knew this artist called Sarah Bagans, and I was interested in doing some art, and she very kindly hosted some art sessions for me at the end of the week and another couple of colleagues at 4 o'clock on a Friday, and it became this haven of peace and total concentration. It was a flow, like that kind of flow state. And she was just this very grounded, very beautiful person, and her art was extraordinary. And she always just gave us just enough to guide us in the right direction. I mean, she was just amazing. And then, of course, she moved on to do other things. And I really wanted to thank her for the sessions, so I wrote the song. And she liked the song, that was nice, and that was it. And then I thought it's way too specific, too personal,
right,
to release. Nobody's going to connect with it. It was for that situation. But I happened to play it. A friend of mine called John Crawford, who's big on the Aberdeen folk scene, he said to me one day, "What are you working on?" And I said, "Well, I just did this," and I shared it with him, and he really liked the song.
Mm-hmm.
So he encouraged me to go ahead and record it. So this is going to sound awful, but I didn't have much faith in it as a potential track for release. So when I started working with Vitaly, I thought, oh, well, I'll do that song and see how he handles it, because I don't mind if that song works or not. And then he just played this absolutely beautiful guitar part. We were struggling with it a little bit. And then he said, "I'm going to play it like a classical guitar." So he changed the way he was sitting, and he sat like holding his classical guitar, and that track just happened. It just came out. It was wonderful. So yeah, that's the story. And also it's because of that song that we ended up with the videos as well, because I thought it'd be nice for Sarah maybe to do the artwork for the song I wrote for her. And out of that, we ended up with 3 videos and her beautiful artwork in the videos. So it was, I mean, that song has been an absolute gift.
So when you were doing art on the Friday afternoon, what kind of art were you doing? What was it?
Very bad. Very bad.
And what form was it? Let me put it that way.
Well, Sarah started us off working in pastels, which I absolutely hated.
Right.
Because it's so, I'm a bit of a control freak, so I want lines. I want, the idea, like an architect's pen is my heaven. So she suggested we work in pastels. So we were working, we each picked a picture that we liked and then reproduced it in pastels. And it was about learning the techniques and learning about the colors and learning how to see. I think that's what she was really trying to teach us, was how to actually see and translate that into 2 dimensions. It was a fascinating process.
And how then, as you say, she's now made videos and she's done the artwork, is that right, for the whole project as well?
Yeah.
That was down to this song, was it? That was the kind of link that you had there?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. She was a little bit, I hope Sarah doesn't mind me saying this, but she was a little bit embarrassed because she said people will know the songs about me. About her.
Yeah.
But I was delighted when she said she'd do it, and there was a real joy in that process with her, working with her, because we had these wonderful artistic conversations about discussing ideas for it and developing it, and those were just a joy. That was great.
So that's been the person that you've collaborated with for the visual side of things, but you've also got a musical collaborator as well. Can you talk a bit about that?
Oh, I'd love to talk about Vitaly, yes. Vitaly Kachuk is the most amazing guitar player. he can play anything. He specializes in jazz and improvisation. He plays killer solos, and he can just play anything. He can shred on, some crazy electric guitar with the best of them, and play absolutely beautiful classical music. He's just amazing to work with, and he's also able to kind of tune into what's right for the song. He's interested in doing what's right for the song, so it's a joy to work with him.
And how did you come to work with him? How did that come about?
Well, that was just luck.
Right.
As these things usually are in life. Well, Only a Ghost Had Gone on hiatus, and so I was digging out these songs that I'd written myself and never really done anything with. And I am not an instrumentalist. I can pick out a few chords on the ukulele, which is how I usually write, and I can play a few drastic chords on an old guitar. But I'm not an instrumentalist, so I knew I needed a guitarist. And I signed up to a subscription service called Musiversal.
Right.
And it's you buy a subscription and you can book sessions online with professional musicians, and they record your stuff for you.
Right, okay.
And the beauty of it is I tried a few things on Fiverr and got badly burned. One was very successful, but I had a few real disasters, and you can't afford that. It's too expensive, So Musiversal, they're top people. And so I signed up. I was very lucky because they had EU startup funding. Right. In their first year. And I was very lucky to sign up in the first year when the subscriptions were massively subsidized. Okay. So it was ridiculous the price was just ridiculous. But it allowed me to access it. And I was looking for a guitarist that could work across genres and could work across cultures, because I had written a song about Afghanistan, and I didn't want a country or folk feel to it. I wanted something that was a little bit more Eastern. And I noticed that Vitaly played the oud. Right. So I thought, he could be good to work with. And so I threw this Afghanistan song at him, and he just knocked it out of the park. It was amazing. It's just a beautiful track. And then I thought, right, I'll try her art and see if he can do nylon. I was really interested in working with a nylon string guitar. Okay. Because I think that works well with my voice. So I thought, okay, he can play the oud beautifully, amazingly, and very expressively as well. Let's see what he can do with nylon strung. So that was why I threw him her art. And when I saw what he could do with those two extremes, when I saw what he could do with that, 25 tracks later, it's just... And he's a lovely person to work with as well. And has working with him kind of changed the way that you work? Oh, that's a good question. Well, it's made me more disciplined. Right. Because I have to give him the finished article. There's no point giving him something that's half-baked, so we'll just have to do it again. Yeah. Although he can make anything work. Has it changed the way I work? Yeah, I am more organized. You have to be when you're working remotely and with somebody else, because although we sit together in a session, we're on Zoom and we're listening on an app called Audio Movers, so we get good quality sound. If I haven't set the session up right, then I'm undermining both of our efforts. I think what's happened recently with Vitaly is because he's a jazz guitarist, jazz keeps creeping in. Yes, they'll do that. They'll do that. And I've written a couple of songs recently that he's seen a real jazz potential in. So I think he's expanding my horizons. I want everything to be acoustic guitar and vocal only. Yeah. When I started, and he has encouraged me to expand my horizons a bit. So that's been fun. I've learned a lot. And let's talk about another track on the EP, The Darkening Fair. What can you tell us about that? The Darkening Fair. Yeah, that was a song that lived in my musical soul for years. Right. Waiting, just waiting. my father was a poet. I think we've talked about this before, and most of his poems are very accessible. They're very understandable. I knew what they were about, and except for this one, it was a mystery. It was very short. It was only about 8 or 12 lines, I think, very short, and not like his usual stuff. And I really didn't understand I didn't understand what it was about, and I didn't understand why he'd written it or where he got the inspiration. And he died in 1980, and it was just one of the many things I never thought to ask him.
Yeah.
And so this song came back to me, this poem came back to me a few years ago and started bugging me. It was just always in the back of my mind. It was like an itch I had to scratch. And so I tried to write it, or tried to just put it to music and turn it into a song, but it's a poem, it's not a song.
Yeah.
So I ended up writing extra lines that would go in it, and I didn't use all the lines that were in the original poem. And I would still find it hard to articulate really what the poem meant to me then. I know what it means to me now. Yeah. And I can see why at this stage in life it resonates, because it was written when he was, older as well. Why it resonated with me then, I'm not very sure. I don't know. But yeah, it was a real journey, that song, because it was in writing the song that I began to understand what the poem meant for me. It was a revelation. I'll never know if that's what it meant for him.
Of course.
Which I've just got to live with, It doesn't really solve the initial question of why did he write it, but that's life.
But that's the thing with certainly a lot of writing, but specifically with poetry, is it's kind of offered up to people to make of it what they will, isn't it? You don't tend to get, sometimes you do when you go to spoken word, but on the whole, you don't get breakdowns of what the poem means to the poet. You have to you interpret them, and you kind of bring your own life to them, don't you?
Oh, that's a really good point, Ellie. Yes, thanks for saying that, because when people ask me what my songs are about, I usually say, well, I'm not going to cut across what your experience of it is. So I should respect his creativity that way as well. That's really helpful. Thank you. This is therapy.
And have you ever, is that the only poem of his that's kind of not forced you, but inspired you, if you like, to write about them? Or have there been other pieces that you thought, I could maybe look at that?
Well, we wrote, Bob Sivright and I wrote Long Hope together when we were only a ghost. So that was based on a poem that my dad had written. We only used a couple of lines for the poem, but that was a profound inspiration for that song. And there is one other that I haven't actually tackled yet, but he wrote it about the beachfront in Aberdeen, and we've got these weird concrete shelters on the beachfront in Aberdeen. Yeah. And how he'd sat there one day, and there was an old sailor sitting in there, and full of COPD, and obviously in his last days. And he wrote the poem about that experience, and that's another one that really hit. I don't know why, but that one really hit. So I think someday that's going to come out as a song.
And the final song, which we're going to hear in a moment, Every Turn of the Tide, what's inspired that?
Lying awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, worrying about somebody, right. Not being able to sleep for worry for someone. And I think this is it's not an uncommon experience. I don't want to say too much, but yeah, it was a way of processing that and finding a way of living with it.
And you've mentioned other songs a couple of times now. Does that mean that this is only the first kind of project with Vitaly and Sarah, or is there more to come, or do you not know yet?
Well, I hope I get to go on working with both of them, because they're fantastic to work with, and there's such joy in that process. And it's hard work as well. Everybody who's tried to do this knows that, but there's real joy in it as well. So I do hope I can go on working with them. we've done quite a few. Vitaly and I have done quite a few songs, so we're planning to bring out more singles and an album next year. I mean, we make plans and the gods laugh, you know, so we'll just have to wait and to go with the flow. But we've got a lot of tracks ready to go, and yeah, it would be great to get an album out.
And I think releasing music with videos these days is a really interesting way of doing it, because it just adds another layer to the whole thing. And I'm presuming Vitaly is not in this country, is he? I mean, that's why you're zooming, it's overseas.
Oh, I should have said, yeah, Vitaly is in Odessa in Ukraine. So yeah, we're working remotely, yeah.
So this is going to be an audio and visual project rather than, you know, touring or live or anything like that for the foreseeable future anyway.
Yeah, that's a really nice way of putting it. Yeah, yeah, well summed up.
Well, Louise, it's a lovely to see you again and really lovely to talk to you. I'm really enjoying the EP.
Thank you so much, Ali. I'm like I said, you know, when we're releasing something, it's always in the back of my mind, is Ali going to like it? What's Ali going to think of it?
And you know, I haven't thanked you in person for sending me some copies of your dad's unpublished poems right here. That was very kind of you, and I've really enjoyed reading them. And it's interesting that you are now, you know, that you're continue to kind of be inspired by them as well. That's a lovely thing.
Yeah, thank you for being interested to read them, because no one has read those ones yet. So I'm really happy that they've got eyes on them. Thank you.
And this is Louise McCorkindale and Every Turn of the Tide.